Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, January 13th, 2026, about 5:15 p.m. And with a quorum of members present, I will be calling the Finance Committee to order. Item number 1 on our agenda is public comment on agenda items and reading of the City of Wausau public comment statement. Is anybody here for public comment this evening? All right, not seeing anything. We will move on to item number 2, consideration of the minutes of the preceding meetings, and that is December 9th, 2025, our regular Finance Committee minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes.
A motion from Watson, a second from Tierney. Discussion? Not seeing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Item number 3 is discussion and possible action, and we have several items here. Point A, approving the termination of tax increment district number 7. Mary Ann, do you have anything to say about this? Or?
At the last council meeting, we had presented a resolution to extend the district for 1 year for housing stock improvement, which failed. So this really is just housekeeping. The Wisconsin DOR requires council resolution terminating the district. So it really just fulfills that administrative obligation that we have with the state.
Okay, so this is the point where we start officially closing the district. Yep. So if there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Watson? Actually,
I had a question. Was there a staff memo or when I click on it, it says it's invalid?
There was staff memos. So we have new software, and unbeknownst to me, so that you're allowed to create your memo in the software, but there's a final step that you have to go to actually publish that memo. I wasn't aware of that final step, so I did the memos, but because we didn't push the publish button, they were not in your packet. And I recognize that today, but because of the rules, we were not allowed to republish it in the packet because we can't make changes to the packet because of council rules. So my apologies. This had a memo, as did the referendum. So my apologies. I was not aware of a final step that we had to do.
Is there anything in the memo? Is there anything in the memo we need to know?
No, it just said that. Basically, that it was an administrative task that the DOR requires us to do.
All right. Alder Tierney, did you have a? Okay. So we'll let you make the motion then. So. All right, a motion has been made to close TID 7. Is there a second? Second from Greiner. Any final discussion?
Just a typo. Just change number in the resolution.
Oh.
Not number.
It's a typo?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, so we'll get that. I don't think that'll require an amendment or anything. Text. Where is the typo? Where am I?
It's in the first line of the resolution. It says.
Oh, there it is. Oh, my eyes are getting small print for my eyes here. All right. Yeah, that's not going to require an amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Is that it? Nay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. 4-1. Watson voting no, and motion carries. Item B, approving an April 7, 2026 referendum to increase property taxes on an ongoing basis to retain 12 firefighter paramedic positions and offset expiring federal grants. And this starts the process for creating that referendum question for the April ballot. As a council body, we voted back in November to put the referendum forward, so.
And this also had a memo. So if you look at your packet, the first thing that's in the packet is basically just the DOR's guidance on language. So the process that we went through is the stakeholders, the fire chief, myself, the mayor met to talk about, well, what specific descriptive words, like, that we're using it to fund the firefighters after the grants have expired. But as you would be able to see in that DOR document, most of the question is mandated by them. And then I worked with the DOR and our financial advisors to make sure that we had the calculations correctly. So basically, because we are doing this in the beginning of the year, we use the net new construction from last year, and we add in, because we're closing that district, the percentage that we would get from that to come up with those percentages that are listed in there. So I worked, like I said, with our financial advisors and then submitted the worksheet that I used and the question to the Department of Revenue for them to review it and approve it prior to it coming here. So that's basically the process. And then if you would notice in your packet, you had two resolutions, one for the $1,450,000 and then the other was for the $1,025,000. The difference being that the $1,450,000 is our best estimate of what those 12 firefighters with their fringes and salary would cost in 2027. The $1,025,000 then says we're not going to raise the levy by the full amount because we've been talking about should we use the TID 7 savings to basically not use for generally when we close that TID, if there's any portion of the TID that rolls into our levy limit computation, it's absorbed through increases in health insurance, increases in cost of living, CPI, those kinds of things. So it would require us basically to tighten our belt further if that referendum was only the $1,025,000. And I know if you look at the language is consistent except for the percentages, again, because those change because we're not levying as much or in the referendum or proposing to levy as much. The only other thing that perhaps we should change that we've had discussions internally is if you choose the lesser amount is to remove the 12 firefighters because there's been some discussion, it's not going to fund 12 firefighters. It's going to fund 7+ firefighters. And so maybe that would be a bit of a, wouldn't be 100% accurate. And actually, I did get feedback, and we talked about this internally. The DOR's feedback was, don't even put the number of positions in there, just say firefighters, because if, for example, you would want to change that, you wouldn't have the opportunity to only fund, let's say, 11 once the referendum was passed. You must fund 12 firefighters then. So they felt, the DOR just said, typically we give recommendations to people to not put the number of positions they're funding. So internally, and Jeremy, please feel free to speak up if there was discussion of, well, should we use their advice and take it out, or should we leave it in so that people can see, I guess, the affordability component of it? They can do the math and go, okay, $1,450,000 divided by 12 is, $120,000. Does that seem reasonable or not? So it seemed more transparent to put the position number in than not.
But
Again,
but if you put the position number in, then you're committed to that number of firefighters, regardless of
yes.
if the 1.4 million or whatever dollar amount funds that.
Right.
Could you say up to 12, or does it have to be? Could you say firefighter, a fully staffed fire service, or something like that? I don't know.
Well, and I think, if you read the rest of the sentence, it says the firefighter positions funded by an expired grant. So that would be 12 firefighters. But, Chairman.
Yeah, Chief Kopp, do you have anything to,
Yeah, I'd just add, I think Mary Ann did a very good job of explaining all that. I'd just add, in our discussions, it was about transparency, and I think that's the most transparent way to tell the public what we're trying to do and what the end result will be, as well as using firefighter paramedic, not just firefighter,
yeah.
because they will be firefighter paramedics.
okay. And I guess the big question would be is if we want to go for the entire 1.4 million, or if we want to use what TID 7 is bringing to the levy and go with the smaller 1,025,000 dollars. Now, I heard initial estimates that our 27 budget will probably have up to a 5% increase based on inflation, or is that?
Well, I think it's pretty early to really know what that will look like because we don't have health insurance numbers. There's a lot of unknowns, but
Okay.
generally speaking, every year it's a struggle to balance the budget, and every year, I know health insurance has been particularly a challenge as we go and negotiate with them. So that's, it's so hard because we're.
Cost to
so-
continue has usually been about 2 to 3%, except for the last couple of years, it's really increased.
And we had some, union contracts that had bigger inflation points in them that we had historically. Again, kind of trailing what we saw for CPI
Yeah.
during COVID and.
So, committee, your thoughts? Alder Watson?
I guess just a couple questions. So there's an explanatory statement and
yeah.
effective voting at the bottom. Where does that go on the ballot? Or is that like an insert? Or what did,
Oh.
because if we were gonna like make the referendum, like that, I guess would go on the ballot a little less specific, instead of having the 12 firefighters, we would change the explanatory statement to.
I don't know if this is actually true, but I would imagine that we would treat it similar to a state referendum question, where I think the Attorney General would put out some sort of conclusions as to a yes or no for that. That's generally provided to voters upon request.
Okay. And then so since we have it approved, or you ran it by the DOR, what's the next steps before this gets on the ballot? Like, is this the last step?
It would be.
And does it have to have a certain deadline?
So we have to submit it to the city clerk by January 26th of this year.
Okay. And that's a firm date?
Yes.
Alder McElhaney?
Okay, I think that we should do the 1.4. I don't think we should, my opinion, that we should include TID 7 as a way to do that down. It's not going to, it'll be problematic. I talked to a lot of residents, that'll be problematic. So I think you should go for the full amount. But also, we have two dates in here. The first paragraph says April 7th, and then the explanatory says April 6th.
Oh.
So we probably should keep the right date
Yeah, we
of the election.
The election would be April 7th, so.
Yeah.
And to be it further resolved has
That
the.
further resolves is
Yeah,
April 6th,
so that,
yes.
yeah. So, but that would be my thought is, I think we should, if you're going to go for a referendum, we should do the 1.4.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I had some initial feelings that it would be safer, or it might be a little more palatable to go with the smaller amount and to use, whatever TID, the closure of TID 7 brings to the levy. But I have a feeling that with our other costs and expenses, we cut a lot out of the 26 budget, and we're gonna have to, if coming into 27, if we don't have any way to cut some of the, to refund some of those temporary cost savings, it's gonna be very painful to complete, complete the budget and keep the fire service fully staffed with the passage of this referendum. So, anybody else? Alder Greiner?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. I have a question for the finance director. Whether we choose to go with the 1.4 or the 1,025,000, do we have any idea what kind of an impact each one of those corresponding amounts would give to taxpayers on their tax bills next year? Is it broken down? I know it's hard. It's not apples to apples, but
I had that in my memo too. Okay, Cody, how do I get to my memo?
Mary Ann's looking for her memo because she had that amount in there, but it was, the increase to the levy would be 3.956%. I don't remember what that amount would do to the mill rate, though. 39, I'm going to say $39 per $100,000 of assessed value. So,
pardon, it would be $39?
3.956% should be
Oh,
$39 per 100,000 assessed value. So if you have a average home like mine, $160,000 home, that we're going to be talking about an increase of $65 to your property taxes.
Right. And, just we can't obviously put that in but we'll be able to put it in newsletters or things like that.
Alder
Thank you.
Keating?
Thank you, Chair. And that's one of the reasons, too, that I feel going with the 1.4 would be better, because it might sound great right now that the 1,025,000 would be less to the taxpayer, but if we use that TID savings, like you said, it could hit them hard at property tax time, and if we have to, start giving, if we don't have that money from TID 7, this is all going to land in the taxpayer's lap too, by, reducing services that they have. So, this is between a rock and a hard spot situation.
Yeah, I know it's hard to project, what we're going to need come 7-8 months down the road when we start building the budget, but it's probably better to give us a little more wiggle room than it is to cut as finely as you can and hope for the best. Alder Tierney?
Just one more thought. When you had said 7 months down the road, we had talked about this, and I think that we have to start earlier than that because of what is all going to be happening with all these ARPA grants going away and the things that they fund. I think especially important this year that we start that process sooner than later.
Oh, absolutely. Not going to disagree with you on that. So, Alder Watson?
So how did the DOR suggest you reframe it to allow for a little?
Remove the 12,
Just-
the number 12.
Just
yeah.
the number 12? Because otherwise it requires us to fund 12 regardless,
Correct.
which is the current staffing needs anyway, right?
I'd
Yeah.
just come up if you had any more questions.
What was
For
your,
us internally, it
what
was
was
all
your,
about transparency.
you just liked it for the transparency portion?
Yeah.
Like so people could do some instant math in their head
Just
maybe?
with all the talks that we've had and, the cow and finance and council and everything else, I think most of the public is aware of the number of firefighter paramedics that we have, and It was just about transparency after we talked about it in depth. I reached out to some other chiefs and different things too, and some have done it, some have not, but kind of the same idea. It's about transparency and letting people know exactly what they're getting.
Okay.
Not what they're getting, but what they're looking at, voting on.
Well, I think it's important for the public to realize what it takes to have a fully staffed fire service. And if it's 12, if we're looking, if it's 12, the number that we need, I think that might be an important selling point to the referendum. It's absolutely. Alder Watson?
So a stupid question in the explanatory statement that may be like requested by voters, but like in the yes part, could we add in there like how much it is per position? Or how much it would cost, like for 100, like the amount you had in your staff memo, the $39 per 100,000.
So we can't do that in the question if that's what
Right.
you're asking.
In the explanation?
I don't think we can. I think the idea was to do that in the mailers and public meetings, right?
Because it would be nice to know if I vote yes, like how much that's going to affect my property taxes. Like I'd like to know it would be $39 per every 100,000 on my house. But I'm not going to be able to do that, even if I knew the math in my head about, like, it's about 150 per fireman or whatever. But that's not
Which-
something we could do in the
Which
explanation.
was one of my big concerns, and that's why I really want to, after we move forward tonight, whatever direction we go, would be getting to as many public meetings as we can, getting to all the neighborhood groups, and just talking with everybody face to face and letting them know exactly what those answers to those questions are.
Thanks.
Anything else? Otherwise, if I don't hear any other discussion, I will entertain a motion on if we should go with Resolution 26-109 or the substitute referendum resolution for the lower amount. Alder Watson?
I'll move to approve the resolution 26-0109 for approving the $1.45 million referendum ask.
All right. Is there a second? A second from Alder Tierney. Discussion? All right. Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Kopp. Item C, approving primary towing services agreement with Joe Rader Towing LLC and secondary towing services agreement with Lightning Express Towing. And we've got a staff memo in here, and there's a couple of contracts. I see Captain Seilers in the audience. If anybody has any questions on this, I think we've had the same towing contract for several terms now, so, and it's worked out well. If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Watson?
Move to approve the towing services agreement with Joe Rader Towing and secondary towing service agreement with Lightning Express Towing.
All right, and then Alder Greiner, you second. All right. Discussion? Not seeing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Item D, approving second amendment to fixed base operation agreement regarding lease agreement between Wausau Flying Service, Inc. and Phillips 66 Company for lease of a Jet A refueler truck. And I see John Schmiel, our airport manager, is here if anybody has any questions on this. I know this is a little bit unorthodox, but I guess it's.
Would you like an explanation?
Yeah, I think I know you gave us an explanation at the airport committee meeting, but I think something here at the finance committee might be in order too. So-
Okay, so the city is entertaining replacing the refueler truck. We've had it for quite a while, and it's getting more and more difficult to maintain. So one of the options that we're looking at is that the city would. Well, let me rephrase that. Wausau Flying Service would lease a fuel truck from Phillips 66 because they have a program available, and we're branded Phillips 66. Solomon and I have been working together, and he thinks He feels that that is a viable option. The money part of it will be talked about at a later meeting. But the city of Wausau cannot enter into a lease agreement with Phillips 66 because they don't have the contract and they're not branded. So the way that it would work and what we're trying to accomplish here tonight is that Wausau Flying Service would agree to lease the vehicle. And because the FBO contract is written that the city is responsible for providing that vehicle and maintaining it, the city would reimburse Wausau Flying Service the amount of the lease agreement with Phillips 66.
Which would require an amendment to the contract.
Correct.
So, all right, that makes sense?
Yep, and I would just say that this does then constitute a long-term debt basically for the city because we're not an actual signed party, but a party of that lease. I don't know. I've been working with our financial advisors on that because I wanted to make sure that if we had disclosure requirements, that we met those disclosure requirements. So we're working on that, but they felt we would need to disclose that.
So because this is a lease,
Right.
it'll be added to our,
Yes, and it has a purchase component to
Correct.
it at the end of the lease.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so that you know, by approving this tonight, it doesn't mean that the city is committing to this agreement. It gives us the opportunity to entertain this agreement. We may decide that the best direction would be to buy the vehicle outright. So that's something we're going to entertain at another meeting.
so we have to go through a negotiation process, but this gives the flying service the ability to entertain a lease because now it's part of their contract.
Correct.
with the city. All right. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Watson?
So then that lease or whatever decision it is, if we buy the truck or lease through Phillips, it'll come back to this committee after airport?
Yes, it will come to this committee. Yes, because it's a standing committee.
Okay.
Yep.
And then when do you estimate ETA? Do you think like a month or two?
We're trying to wrap this up sooner rather than later because we're kind of putting Band-Aids on the current vehicle. So we have some numbers. We have to discuss those with Mary Ann and the powers that be to make sure that we're making the proper financial decision.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
I would move to approve the Second Amendment to the Fixed-Based Operation Agreement regarding lease agreement between Wausau Flying Service, Inc. and Phillips 66 Company for lease of a Jet A refueler truck.
All right, a motion from Watson, second. Second from Greiner. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
You bet. Item E. Approving sole source request for the purchase of services for an on-site physical therapist or athletic trainer through Advanced Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine for the Wausau Police Department and the Wausau Fire Department. Again, this is a renewal contract. We've been using the same physical therapist for several years. I know we got the police chief here and the fire chief if anybody has any questions about this. So, if anybody need to know what the therapist does, I guess? I don't know. Otherwise, like I said, this is a renewal of the contract. So, Alder Watson.
I just had a question. Is the hours staying the same, upping them, decreasing them? That she's is it 18 total per week?
Yeah, the hours are remaining the same as what our previous use was. The one thing that's different here is every single year about this time, we come back to you with a sole source. Excuse me, for this. This is locking in that cost per hour for a 5-year period of time included in this sole source. I've spoken to Mary Ann about it. We think that protects the city to the best. And we were one of the first, the fire department, they beat us to the punch. It's rare they beat us to anything, but in this particular case they did. In utilizing advanced physical therapy services. And then we came on board several years later. And we're really because we have been with them for so long and are part of a legacy group producing this type of services for first responders, We pay about $50 an hour less in this contract for the next 5 years than we would be paying. If we went out and tried to take bids on this, we would expect those per hour costs to come in at about $140 an hour as opposed to $91 an hour. So being able to protect that cost for the next 5 years, we think is in our best interest.
And also that having that on-site therapist does help with our workers' comp, I do believe, because it does reduce injury.
We feel that the cost to this is, on an average year, is probably break even in just the amount of time we save and the speed in which we get injured workers back into the squad cars and doing the work. Weeks and weeks and weeks of lost time are prevented by providing these services on site. In essence, if Tracy Toffner were here, she'd tell you, if you were a Green Bay Packer that were paying millions of dollars, we're going to get you back on the field as quickly as possible by giving you regular and consistent and on-site care, and we do that for our staff, and they get back to work faster. And as a result, that has really impacted the culture both at the fire department and the police department on how they feel valued and their net worth as an employee.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Motion from Greiner. Okay, second. Second from Watson. Any discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Thanks, both of you, chiefs. Items F, approving sole source request for the purchase of professional services for help in updating the City of Wausau Comprehensive Plan through North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, NCWPRC, for the Wausau Community Development Department. We have Brad Lenz here if anybody has any questions on this. We do our comprehensive plan, I guess, about every 10 years, and it's time for to start that process for a comprehensive plan. North Central Regional, Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission does have the staff and the knowledge in order to assist us with our comprehensive plan, and it sounds like they come in at a very good value. But like I said, we got Lenz here if anybody has any questions on that. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Greiner?
Sorry. Move to approve the sole source request for the purchase of professional services for help in updating the City of Wausau Comprehensive Plan through the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission for the Wausau Community Development Department.
All right, is there a second? Second from Tierney. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Item G, approving sole source request for the purchase of thermal imaging cameras and compatible charging docks through the McQueen Group for the Wausau Fire Department. And we've got Chief Cop here. Now, I believe that the cameras were part of the CIP, the Capital Improvement Planning process. Is that correct? Or were they just a budgeted item?
I don't believe I had that in CIP this past year.
Okay, so they're just a budgeted item for replacement?
Correct. And right now, what we're looking at doing is just transferring some money from an account that we have for hazmat, our hazmat account. In order to do this, our thermal images right now are getting to the end of life. A lot of them are unreliable and don't function all the times that we need them. So we're looking at just upgrading and getting thermal imaging cameras that work all the time and we can rely on. So we have written a few grants for them over the past year, but we were unsuccessful.
Any questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Greiner?
I have a question for the chief. So through transferring this $23,000 out of the hazmat fund for that, do you see or foresee that creating any potential problems for you in the future should something come up?
Years ago, I would have told you yes. At this time, I'll tell you no, just because we have been very good with the balance of that money in our hazmat fund, and we have purchased a lot of things over the past few years that got us up to speed, even ahead of the speed of some of the other regional hazmat teams in the state, including some of our our detectors and our different tools that we use in the hazmat rig. So, many of those things we're ahead of the game. We have the money coming in every year, and I feel financially confident that it puts us in a good spot.
Yeah, and I think because we're a regional hazmat team, we are funded by both the state and other municipalities that draw on our services.
Correct.
So that's where that balance comes from.
Yep. The state and the county as well
Yeah.
as we're a city hazmat team also, obviously.
Any other questions or? Alder Watson?
I'd move to approve the sole source request for the purchase of the thermal imaging cameras.
Okay, motion from Watson, a second. Second from Tierney. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Item H. Approving reprogramming of returned $25,000 of the 2024 CDBG allocation from Granite House Public Service Activity to Acquisition Activity. And I believe we got Tammy Stratz in the audience. If anybody's got any questions on this, there is a staff memo and also a spreadsheet in your packet. Evidently, Granite House is unable to use the funding, so it's gracious of them to return it, and we could put it to use in other activities. So, if there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Watson?
I'd move to approve.
Okay, a motion from Watson, a second. Second from Greiner. Discussion? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. All right. Item number 4, discussion. And that's improving public understanding and transparency around tax increment districts. And there's some information in your packet on there. So Alder Watson has been kind of noodling around with some TID, I don't want to say educational materials, I guess, to kind of better explain how our tax increment districts function and what the benefits they are to the community. So does anybody have any questions on this? Alder Watson, it looks like you.
Well, I guess I just had a point. Like, so insomnia, post-knee surgery pain, it all sort of made me think, hey, let's stay up at night and just design something that makes me think about when I think of TIDs. So I don't know. I think TIDs have been this conversation that, I know when I first ran for council, it was something that I didn't have a clear grasp on, to be honest with you. And they've been around since like the 70s, pre-70s probably even, but I just think there's a lot of debate and discussion about what TIDs are and aren't, and I think it's just something, and I know we've had great, presentations by Mary Ann. I really like those. I just think sometimes they're a little, maybe a little in-depth, maybe a little, I don't know, they're intense. They're intense. So I guess I was hoping we'd have more of a discussion about what they are, how they impact our debt, because I also think that's another question that I didn't really get into in this document either. I guess I just sort of look at the TID as a snow globe kind of thing. That's how I look at it in my brain hole. But I just think there's certain things that it would be great if we could have a little more discussion on, just to clarify some of the frequently asked questions, like how does it impact my debt? How does it impact our taxes? Those kind of things. And so yeah, that's what I was hoping we'd have a bigger conversation about.
I do enjoy the snow globe analogy, and I think that's it is kind of fitting how the TID sort of encapsulates an area and then lets it kind of develop on its own, because money that is as that increment increases, that money is reinvested back into that captured area. So Mary Ann, did you have something to add, or?
Oh, I was just going to say that same week, earlier in the week, when you provided this to us, Randy Free Frick and I had been talking about it, and we had said, that, again, this is a kind of a marketing thing, and we had thought this would be a great way for like someone like the League of Municipalities to step in, because I think, the misconceptions of TIDs happen all over the state of Wisconsin. I mean, obviously, we've seen even in the local area some of the questions and concerns raised, whether it be at the county board, whether it be in the town of Rib Mountain. But if you, look around the state, everyone struggles with trying to explain to their residents what a tax increment district does and how it functions from a financial standpoint. And so, one simple document or ad that everyone could use seems like the most efficient way. You look at the Wisconsin Counties Association, I feel like sometimes they do have entered the realm of marketing on behalf of counties. And so we talked about you get way better bang for your buck if you can all use something rather than everybody creating the wheel specifically. So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, I know the league has put together documents with, educational materials about TIDs, but a lot of them are focused towards, either elected officials or people working in government, and something that is forward facing for the taxpayer. I think it would be of tremendous benefit. And I think that it looks like, Alder Watson, that's something that you're trying to capture in your discussion here. So, anything else, Alder Greiner?
Yeah, I'd also say that going forward, it would be interesting to see something in the city newsletter, just informational for citizens to get the facts, to understand how these works, how they're implemented, how they're closed, things like that. Because just in going through, dealing with community members, there seems to be a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion surrounding how they operate, what we can, and more specifically, what we cannot use them for. Mm-hmm. So moving forward, that might be an option, just a recurring publication in the city newsletter as we go through the year, explaining different facets of how they operate and things like that. So I'd like to see that.
Oh, yeah. No, that'd be great. Anything else? Alder Watson?
I know I would totally be glued to the newsletter if there was like a TID fact, like little corner. I think that would be cool. And you could come up with a new fact every time, or a, frequently asked question kind of thing. So thank you.
Alder Tierney.
Thank you. I think one of the things that should be put in here, because it's frequently done, is about when we don't close TIDs on time. Because if we don't close TIDs on time, that property tax revenue is not given back to the taxpayer. We need to do an explanation of if we don't close a TID on time, why it's not closing on time, and what happens to, how that affects the taxpayer. Because it does. And because we make a common practice of keeping TIDs open. So just my 2 cents, because that is a common practice and it does have an effect.
It does, yeah. It's in an ideal world, a TID would be a definite time period, and development would go at the pace that it's expected, and the increment would grow, and everything would be happy. But sometimes things do go sideways, and I think we do need to explain the reasons why that might happen, and what are the what's the downside or the perils that can happen with a TID going underwater and things like that.
Yeah, because I think this is great for informational purposes, and it explains a TID, but I think we have to have not just the benefits of it, but we should be showing both sides of it so that people really do understand it understand what the pros and the cons would be. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's not, that makes perfect sense, because there's things that we do as elected officials to manage the TID, especially the ones that are underperforming, and those things may not make sense. And in understanding why, why the TID's in the place that it is at this point, would definitely be very helpful. So, okay. Anything else? This is just informational only, so it's, we don't, no action on this, but it's something we can certainly revisit if there's, at a future meeting, maybe, or if, get the league on board, maybe they can come up with something too to help, to sort of flesh this document out. That's something that's just, a little bit more public facing, so. Okay. If I don't hear anything else, we'll move on to item number 5.
Move to adjourn.
Well, okay, there you go. Motion from Watson, second from Tierney. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you.